What's up, guys? We're back here with another video. Last video we left off with installing the motor. This video we're going to be filing up that and tidying everything up, also getting on the turbo kit. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy. Alright guys, so picking up from the last video where we left off at. The harmonic balancer is now on the motor, and as you can see, the motor is actually bolted in the car. Everything for the K-member is put on, and the only thing left is the control arms that need to be bolted down, also the sway bar, but everything, you know, is actually physically bolted down. There's no engine hoist on it at all, so that's kind of a big progress update. Next, we were able to get all the suspension on, so bolt up the control arms, and sway bar was still loose because I just didn't have the time to end up putting it on yet, but in the future it gets put on. So the next major progress update was putting on the turbo itself and putting on the turbo manifold and all that. While that it wasn't, you know, plumbed yet, it still was a major task to end up putting the turbo on. And the manifold, it has to be done in a certain way. You can't just put it all in as one piece. You have to end up assembling the manifold and turbo kind of like shimmied in there. So the driver's side was a challenge to end up getting everything in. My only word of advice to anyone who would be attempting to do this turbo install would just be to be very patient. I was able to get the driver's side in as one piece with the turbo mounted already on the manifold, but it had to go from underneath the car and use a jack to slowly lift it up, because lifting 80 whatever that is, or almost that, you know, pounds, not even 80 pounds, probably about 60 pounds, but after being exhausted it feels like 80 pounds. So after doing that and lifting it up, you know, it's just a challenge because you have to refit it, drop it down, fit it up again. So it's definitely a challenge with that. Alright guys, so it's a new day currently, or a new afternoon. I just shot that intro clip, but today we're going to be focusing on getting the rest of the turbo kit on. Yesterday's progress, we got the whole suspension and everything bolted down, got the turbo on for the driver's side, and we ran a few other things, got it kind of tidied up. So, you know, today we're going to be focused on getting the passenger side turbo kit and everything buttoned up and get that on. I'll kind of update you as I go. Probably won't be much time lapse in this video just because most of the stuff you really cannot see, and it is in a cramped garage, so we'll kind of just give you updates on what happens, so stay tuned. Alright guys, so next we ended up putting on the passenger side manifold, but it was really a pain to end up doing because the clearance is very tight between the manifold and the frame rail. So I guess depending on your application, sometimes it may be better for you to slightly either attempt to bend that little tab on the frame rail, or maybe if your clearance isn't good, you may have to end up tapping the manifold a little bit in. You know, also need to end up heat wrapping some of the starter wires because they're very close to the header, and possibly, you know, cutting them and extending them out of the way. So that's the next task that needs to end up being done for it. The next thing that I ended up doing was putting on some of the accessories. I got the water pump on and the alternator and everything on the power steering pump. So that was a huge, you know, move forward for that and getting it all in. So with this alternator bracket, there's an easy trick that a lot of people seem to forget about. If you remove the bolts that are from the head, you can take the whole unit off as one piece. A lot of people remove the alternator, then they remove the power steering pump, and then the whole bracket, and it just ends up being a nightmare to try to get that power steering pump back on. So just removing it all as one unit is the easiest way that I've found to end up doing it. You just have to use a wrench and slowly walk it off, and the whole bracket will eventually kind of come off, and then take off the little power steering feed and drain from the reservoir. So besides that, it's just a really easy way to end up doing it. It saves a lot of time and a lot of hassle. So one of the other things that I also wanted to address was all of the dirt on the car. Like if you look, there's dirt on the hood, there's dirt, a lot of dirt in the engine bay compartment, And last time when I put the LS3, I wanted to end up washing some of it out, and I kind of did. But it's just from the previous owner, whoever it was, they were, you know, in an area that had a decent amount of dirt. So I want to end up cleaning it all out. I would have before I put the motor in, but obviously without the K-member in the car, there's no way to roll it outside, and I'm definitely not trying to wash it in the garage. There's nowhere for the water to drain, how my garage is set up. So that was a big thing. So next I ended up getting on the starter wires and the few other little main harness wires right there, wrapped and everything in heat shielding. I think I'm still gonna have to end up relocating it to a different place though, because it's still very close to the turbo and everything. So that's one of the next tasks I have to end up doing. Next, you can kind of see from underneath the driver and passenger side turbo and how that it's mounted. There definitely is a lot of wires that need to be rerouted and tucked up, but finally both turbos are on. It was a pain to get the passenger side turbo on because, you know, bolts are super tight. There's no clearance room, especially with the starter nearby. And it really didn't make a difference if you remove the starter or you don't, because the spacing is just super tight. Like there's no wiggle room anywhere. So, you know, luckily I was able to find a wrench combination that worked and just get the bolts all snugged up. So that was a relief for me. Then all the compressor cover on the driver and passenger side were loose until that, you know, I'm gonna end up doing the cold side stuff. So, you know, they're kind of all semi loose, so I could still clock the turbo a little bit. Next, I was able to get the AC compressor on, which I actually had to end up removing the passenger side motor mount and shaving it a little bit to end up clearing the AC compressor. This is a CTSV conversion, so it's not the standard C5 compressor, so it's a little bit smaller, but it does, you know, interfere still with the new motor mount setup, which that's something that's listed with Huron Speed and they talk about, so it's not a huge deal. So the next thing that I'm going to end up doing is going over and pressing in the trunnion kit, and doing that whole process, so you guys will be able to see that. Alright guys, so we're here with another day. As you were able to see yesterday, we went over to Horsepower Factory, Texas. We got the trunnions on the rocker arms and everything, so today we're going to be trying to install that. Also, I ordered some oil feed fittings. We're going to see kind of what happens with that. The turbo didn't even say what oil feed fitting that it needs. I tried a 4AN to 1/8 MPT. It didn't work, so I ordered a 4AN to 1/4 MPT fitting. We'll see if that works, but my expectations aren't that high. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of the next steps that we have right now. I know there really hasn't been that many time lapses in the video, but probably I'll try to do a little time lapse here to record the rocker arm installation. So I was able to get the cold side and stuff on for the driver's side for most of it. Got the clamps and everything in. The only thing that is extra that you kind of have to do and that doesn't really fit is you have to trim part of this. This is like some sort of, I guess like it's a fiberglass material. I opted to use a pair of basically heavy duty style scissors. These are used for a lot of thick stuff you can cut, but it was still a pain. I didn't really want to bring out the grinder as much, so I luckily was able to get this side off and cut, but it's not plastic. This is very hard material. Unless you got some beefy scissors, it will not cut. Also on this side, kind of the same thing. You gotta trim that a little bit for that little opening, and then it goes in there. And on the turbo, let's see if I can see from this angle. Yeah, so it connects to the turbo up there. I also bolted down the compressor cover. It was a pain, but I was able to do it. So next I'll have to tackle the passenger side. So I just made the oil fittings for the drains. It's actually a T3 fitting with a 90 off of it. It's not exactly ideal, but this is how it's gonna probably have to end up being. Just have a little Teflon tape to seal it. All right guys, looking under here, you can see how the setup is as far as the drain goes. So it's a 90 and then basically straight into the pan. I was considering using a 45, but it still seems like a 45 would possibly be too low. So yeah. Also, you can see I have this cold side clamp on. You did have to modify that little notch there. So still need to get the dump tube on, and also probably move the starter wires because they are really close to the turbo. So yeah, that's what's next. Alright, so got the cold side on the passenger side. The only thing I may do on both sides is kind of zip tie this up. But next, need the intercooler and stuff on. Intercooler is not on, so work on that. Alright, so this is the intercooler. Treadstone. Pretty big intercooler, decent welds and everything. Looks really good quality. It's got a lot of cores on it, so we'll see if this fits. I kind of don't think it will fit in the car, but we'll test it out. So guys, not really much of an outro in this video, but I wanted to say if you made it this far, thank you for watching. I wanted to make more progress in today's video, but it kind of just is what it is. Honestly, I did make a lot of progress in today's video, considering that it started off with no anything on the car. So, you know, we basically just had the motor sitting in there. We had no turbo kit, we had no, you know, everything else on the motor. So I just wanted on today's video, I really was trying to get towards a first startup, but you know, sometimes it is what it is, working with a lot of parts delays and a lot of, you know, things that just didn't work out this past week. So you guys, if you've been watching this series, thank you so much. You know, I'll definitely be keeping the content coming. I've been trying to upload every Thursday. That's been the so far goal. But just trying to stay consistent overall and keep out the good videos. But if you guys liked it, make sure to thumbs up this video and subscribe. Thanks guys.